Thank you. Morning. I want to start by speaking about the emergency housing measures that you've put in place. So far I've seen or heard of no proper modelling of how many social homes that the emergency measures are going to deliver, despite this being the Mayor's stated priority. And what I have heard is that there are going to be major concessions to private developers, a lowering of the affordable threshold and public subsidies for private developers. And for someone on a council waiting list, it feels like the only reassurance is that it's profits for developers and an acceleration of the sell-off of the city. And you set out the context, Deputy Mayor Copley, in your intro, but I am interested in what other measures were considered as you saw the context as it was happening.
Well, let me provide the context. The context for this emergency package was that in the first 3 quarters of this year, only 3,200 private homes were started in London on schemes of over 20 units. In fact, in Q1 of this year, in 2/3 of boroughs, there were no starts whatsoever. So that is the context for the package. And the package is essentially made up of 4 things. There was...
I'm interested in what you considered as an alternative to those things, or before you got to those things. Like when you're looking at that context and seeing how...
Let me be absolutely clear. This is not a place any of us wanted to arrive at. I don't think any of us on this panel, certainly Jules and myself, wanted to be in a position where we had to lower affordable housing requirements. But Jules has set out very, very clearly in his opening remarks that the world we are in today is completely different from the world that we were in 2017 when the 35% threshold was created. And, it's all very well saying we should just stick to that. We should stick to 35%. We should just wait it out. The Mayor and Jules and I were not willing to do that because to be clear, 20% of something is better than 35% of nothing. And you talked about modelling. Let's be clear about the package. It was a new 20% emergency, and I stress this, temporary emergency threshold, combined with 50% mandatory SIL relief if schemes reach that 20%, combined with some design flexibilities, plus £322 million in initial funding for City Hall developer.
I think what we all recognise is the context and that something needed to happen, but what I want to challenge is why we're sticking to the model that isn't delivering for us and that created the housing crisis that we're in. So I think going on to viability, so Londoners are watching concessions while big developers keep saying that things are no longer viable. But what we know is that built into their viability is 20% profits, which we never talk about and are never considered. I do feel like this is, these are developers that got £18 million off this housing crisis. And, for example, Berkeley Homes, who mainly deliver in London, got £500 million after tax in 2024. And this isn't what we're talking about. You spoke about tough choices and decisions that the Mayor has taken, but these are never tough choices for people making over 500 million profits rather than the people that are on council waiting lists. So I get the context, but what I'm challenging is why our affordable threshold had to take the hit and not the developer profits.
Assembly Member Pye.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think what
Deputy Mayor Pye.
Assembly Member's point. It goes to the absolute heart of what this issue is. And I know that, obviously, time is limited. It would be worthy of a 2-hour discussion just on its own, this question. There are obviously other things that could be done. But I, Tom, the government, don't have the levers to change them. Bring down interest rates for developers so that they can borrow more easily. At the moment, they go abroad for money. Chair, does the Assembly Member want the answer? The question to me was and the panel was what other things could be considered. And there are interest rates for developers, interest rates for borrowers seeking mortgages, the cost of materials. I was with a room full of developers yesterday. One specifically said, the plant in Zaporizhia, the steel plant, was where we used to get our steel from, and that was one of the main house builders in London. There are any number of factors that have come into play over the last 5 or 6 years, and the GLA and largely the government have no levers in which to move them. So we are where we are with what we have got.
I do think you do have more levers. Like, there could have been more funding from the government for grants. You could have brought down You could have considered bringing in rent control so that people can afford to buy more homes. We know that people aren't buying homes. It's been stated in committee recently that people aren't buying homes. And, the mayor set out to deliver 50% affordable housing. The 35% was meant to be the beginning. It was meant to be the first step. And this is a problem that predates the recent context. So I just feel like we've given up too early, and there's more things that could have happened before we, bowed to the developers.
So you think simply that the entirety of all these homes could be funded just by the public purse? At the moment, the government has increased the funding pot, but as we've seen in previous years, it only goes so far. Even now that it's been raised to somewhat £220,000 per home on average, that still does not, on its own, buy an affordable home. There needs to be Assemblyman, there needs to be cross-subsidy. That's the way the model works. That's the way. I'm not saying the model is great. I'm not saying the model isn't broken.
But we've got councils delivering great housing projects on council land. Do you know what I mean? It is sticking to this cross-subsidy model that's got us into the mess that we're in with, soaring private rents, people not being able to buy private homes, loads of people on temporary accommodation waiting list and housing waiting list. And I just feel like we're breathing life into a broken system rather than considering other options.
Garbett, perhaps if you'd let one of us talk for more than a few seconds. Across the country, 50% of all affordable housing across the country comes through Section 106, which is built by private developers. If private developers are not able to build in London, we are not going to get the affordable housing that you say that you want for the people who are living in temporary accommodation, for the people who desperately need a social rented home. And as I say, it would be really, really easy for Jules, myself and the Mayor to have just gone, you know what? We're just going to wait it out. We're just going to wait and see if things get better. Because that would actually have probably been the politically easy thing to do. But the politically difficult thing to do was to go ahead, create this emergency package. And by the way, it is a temporary measure. And through the fact that it is a temporary measure, the idea is that we get as much new development and therefore as much new affordable housing in a brief period of time, while we get the market going.
I am aware of time, but just on that point that you've just made, so are you making a commitment to do more within this interim period so that this isn't the next commitment within the London plan, that this threshold doesn't continue in the next London plan?
Well, it's important to remember that this hasn't replaced the 35% fast-track route. The 35% is they're still there, and there are still developers that we're working with who are actively sticking to that 35% because of the timing works for them, and the short-term measures that don't, because, for example, if they've got much bigger multi-phased schemes. And the thing is that you effectively what you were saying is, well, really, more public money should be going into this. Yeah. Well, that's effectively what a lot of the measures are, because the SIL relief and the increase in affordable housing and the invitation to developers to come in to have discussions about maintaining levels of affordable housing all add up to exactly what you're saying. Because what the temporary measures are not, it's not come and just do schemes at 20%. End of.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
For a conversation.
I'm going to have to go back to the chair.
And as I say, there are other measures within the temporary package that take it above 20%.
Yeah. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.